Well, on today's episode, I'm pumped up to bring this to you. So this is continuing to chat with Joe Morris / Cat Herder of the Eastman Hiking Club and what's going on with the trail maintainers out there. So he's going to talk today about the challenges that the class of 2025 are going to face, the relationship of trail maintainers and hikers, and where that needs to go and where it is now and kind of where that needs to go. We're going to talk about the Appalachian Trail comprehensive plan that came out of the 80s and how that may be changing, how the actual spirit of the trail of volunteerism has changed over the years, and how that may be continuing to change. And is that going to lead to the AT becoming commercialized more? And then just how the bureaucracy of the National Forest Service and the ATC and working with the trail maintainers, how that is can be an issue sometimes, and how is that going to change? And so let's just dive right in. It's going to be great, folks. I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. So let's go.
I mean, so there's going to be other problems. There's fire hazards, there's waste problems. We could get into that too if you want to, since Tennessee is so famous for its lack of privies, which was on the agenda to be changed. I don't know. Maybe I'll get lucky and retire before I have to deal with that. But I mean, in all seriousness, there's just going to be challenges right now that are they're not insurmountable, but boy, they're going to make the experience a lot more difficult than it used to be, for sure.
Yeah. Now, speaking of shelter, so I know we lost Cherry. Is it Cherry Gap?
Yep, you lost Cherry.
So we lost Cherry Gap completely. That one is in the planning stages of being rebuilt, but you're waiting on some type of survey to be done that started back during COVID. Is there any chance that that's going to be sped up to where you can go ahead and rebuild Cherry Mountain with a new design?
In short order? The answer to that is no, not in short order.
Because you're going to be too busy sawing.
Well, no, not that. It's more. It has more to do with
bureaucracy,
environmental impacts.
Okay,
and the historic nature of the corridor is which I alluded to earlier. It's just changing everything. So I know, I think the first program of yours I ever watched, and I never will forget it because it was an interesting perspective. It was about the barn, when the barn came down.
Okay. And y'all were part of that, and
yeah, we were.
and I thank you for looking past that and coming and actually developing a relationship with me here. I got to thinking the other day. Because I was watching that video of the barn come down, and I was like, wow, they just jerked that sucker down. That's pretty unceremoniously. And then I'm thinking, oh, crap, that was Joe Morris's crew that's doing that. I can't believe he's even giving me information. Yeah. Maybe he doesn't know who I am.
Oh, I watched it. I remember watching it, and I thought, but see, that was the prevailing. That's part of the issue, here with the separation of the communities. If you want to be frank, you weren't. You were not happy about that.
No, I wasn't. I was not, and a lot of other people wasn't happy about it. And we don't have to go down a whole rabbit trail about the Over Mountain Shelter, but I had people contact me that wanted to give, and I actually had a producer from this old house that contacted me and said, look, Ramdino, I watch your channel. I work with these people in this old house. This may be right up their alley to save this thing. Let me talk to them and I'll get back to you. And so I'm like, yeah, okay, great. Maybe we can save the thing. And of course, that didn't go anywhere. But anyway, we don't have to revisit that. But thank you for not holding that video against me and not exactly casting y'all in a great light there. So greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. Let's make it come full circle. One of the reasons that shelter was disposed of was because it was put into service in 1975. So it was fixing to go on the National Register of Historic Places. And it was deemed, from a engineering standpoint, to be much more expensive to try to save it. And in the long run, it probably wasn't going to make it any better structurally to try to save it. So that's really why it was brought down. It's unfortunate. It broke my heart to tear that. I've got a picture of that shelter in my bedroom because it meant a lot to a lot of people, and that space still means a lot to a lot of people. Anyway,
it really did. It was one of the iconic places on the trail, and
yeah,
my son and I took a picture in front of it and everything, and so I'll always remember that. And one of the things that was pretty cool afterwards, though, that happened at Trail Days was I put a notice out there. Somebody said, "Look, I'd like to have a piece of that shelter. If anybody could get me a piece of it, I'd love to have that." Because I saw on somebody else's video where there was just a pile of it left over there to the side. All the rest of it was gone, and I had asked somebody else what they were going to do with the pieces, and I had asked him if he could get me a piece, and he said, "Yeah, that's probably not going to happen." And of course, that didn't happen from that individual. But I had a person that came down from up north from Ohio to Trail Days, and she specifically, before she got to Trail Days, hiked in, got me a piece of that shelter, and brought it to me at Trail Days. And so that was twofold. One, I got a piece of the Over Mountain shelter, and it had a nail in it too. That was what was so awesome. It had a little bitty nail in it. Of course, the nail only protruded about a quarter inch on the other side of it, and I'm thinking, no wonder the thing was structurally unsound. The nails weren't long enough. But the fact that she took the time to go out there and hike in and then bring that to me and find me at Trail Days just speaks a lot for the community that is around the Appalachian Trail and everything out there. So
absolutely.
So anyway, that was pretty awesome.
I want if I know you've been very gracious with your time up to this point.
Oh no, keep talking. We got plenty of time.
I sent you a copy. John and I Bodacious and I got into this long discussion yesterday about the comprehensive plan for the Appalachian Trail, which was generated back in the 80s.
And I saw that, and I appreciate I haven't had time to read over it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a large document. But what I want, it's interesting because in segment 2, and I don't want to go way down into this, but for anybody that's thinking about volunteering, I want you to hear this, because this is it's a cooperative document that was generated under a Senate subcommittee and then passed through Congress as to what it actually means to be a volunteer on the AT. So, and you talked about it when we first started this, about there are any number of different people have different opinions about what the future of volunteerism on the AT is going to look like. I'm not very positive about it personally, but because I think we're going to be replaced by paid crews very often. But maybe this is shifting now for me individually. But it says the management system will preserve and strengthen the role of the volunteer, in which rests the soul of the Appalachian Trail. And then in a postscript box it says, the soul of the Appalachian Trail is what has distinguished it over the years from all the other trails. This soul results from the high level of participation by people who live along it and provide for its care and maintenance. The trail has been attended to by the many without direct supervision, which makes it basically a grassroots undertaking. It reflects the personalities of thousands of persons who have devoted their energies to the trail because they love it. Volunteers with little means help keep the trail a simple footpath. Randino, that makes me almost emotional. Seriously, that is exactly what it is. It is, these people, I cannot tell you how important the people I work with are to me as an individual. They are family to me. Bob Peoples is coming to my house next Thursday for Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
I love these people. They are my brothers. They are my support group from a parental standpoint since my parents have both passed. If you want to tap into that, I know that tramleys are a big deal. I get that they are. I know that you stay in contact with each other. You will never work as hard as probably in your life as you're going to work on the trail. But you will never be loved and accepted unconditionally for who you are as much as when you work on a trail crew. I promise you that. It is the most
That's awesome. That is
it's
really
the most
awesome.
incredible thing I have ever flipping done. And I wish I still wasn't working on top of all this. I wish I could devote even more time to it. It's that bloody important to me.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, and I live so far away from it. I wish I could be a part of that. So, and I plan to, but I'm like you. I work, and so today I happen to be off, and so thank goodness we could get together and talk. But the more I talk to people with the hiker community, and really, the more I've corresponded with you, and this is the first time we've actually seen each other and talked. I already feel a kinship with you and the folks out there, the maintainers that have talked to me and everything. So it's just, I don't know, man. The trail is just something. I think it's something spiritual about it. It really is. It just it brings people together.
I agree with that.
So, you were talking about the what'd you call it, the document? What'd you call that?
Oh, the AT Comprehensive Plan.
Yeah, the AT Comprehensive Plan, and I don't know if you had mentioned it or somebody else had, that there may be some rumblings about that changing. So what is going to be changing about that?
Well, I don't know a lot, but there basically was there has been some lobbying supposedly. This is secondhand. I don't know this for a fact. That there was some lobbying potentially to change that management matrix and philosophy, which, okay, on one hand, makes sense. If we go back to where we started in our conversation, when I started 12 years ago. The Thursday crew had 20 people in it, routinely. Sometimes up to 25, but it was routinely about 20 people. Before Helene, it had gotten down to about 8. Through people passed away, attrition due to old age. Bob still works out here. He's 82, 84. Most of the guys, by the time they get to their mid 80s, they go, okay, I'm out. Paul Benfield and Ted Mowry and all the people that I started with, they just aged out. So, we got to, like I said, we got to about 8. So on the one hand, this simple philosophy of relying on the volunteer nature and the goodness of individuals to care for this footpath that means so much to us is just no longer feasible, in the sense that where are the people going to come from? They don't exist. They don't look at it the same way. The growth of entitlement. I don't want to go into the weeds too much, but in my 12 years of doing this, I see a completely different hiker experience taking place around me than used to be.
I would agree with that. I've seen it. I'm on the board with Fresh Ground and the Leapfrog Cafe. You've heard of them. Yeah. And we see that from time to time, that this entitlement attitude of, hey, I'm entitled to trail magic. Yep. Or, why are you not following us up the trail as we go? So and it's certainly not the more people than not. So it's not rampant out there, but it's still, that entitlement attitude can still be there. And so, I understand what you're talking about.
I don't think people understand. I didn't understand. I thought the Forest Service did all this work. I really did. I just thought, well, it's in the National Forest. It's got to be. Who does it? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a hiking trail. If there's a tree down on it or a hole in the ground or something like that, who do you call? You call the Forest Service office in your district. Hey, there's a hole in the ground. Take care of that. That's what you get paid for, right? They're not doing it. No. Now, they at time it's different now. Now I'm going to say time out even on myself. It's different now than it was We get Brandon and T1, T2, and Jesse, and they've been coming out with us every week. But that didn't start until about 18, 24 months ago. Up to that point, I had, it was all volunteer. And for the most part, it is all volunteer. I mean,
So, and what you read in that comprehensive plan, that it talked about the essence of the volunteer on the trail, and that being the essence of the trail, that's going to change a lot of what the trail is about. And my fear is that the trail now becomes even more commercialized. It becomes more of something that more, I guess, entitlement. People are going to expect more out of it. You've seen a progression from the Grandma Gatewood days of there being no hostels and no shuttles or anything like that, till now there's a whole economy that's built around the trail in lots of places. And what happens when the volunteerism is taken out of the woods, and now now it's expected that the National Forest Service is going to come fill that hole or rebuild that bridge or cut that tree down. And we know that, is that really going to happen? And where does that funding come from? So.
Well, I mean, I think, the bigger picture is quite simple to me. I think when I'm dead and gone, that there will be paid crews of one form or another that will report to Forest Service Trail Tech personnel who do have a good keen grasp of understanding of how the treadway should be built, structures and erosion control and all the different elements. But there will be people that report to them. I would argue right now that there is no way that simple footpath will be cared for nearly as well as what my brethren and sisters are caring for it right now. I would argue that. But you know what? There may not be any other choice, Ramdino. I mean, there just may not be, because there won't be enough people to take care of it. So that's the part, that's the component about the comprehensive plan, and potentially looking to lobby to change it. For Potomac or AMC or some of our larger clubs, doesn't need to be changed. They've got people, they got large population centers that can do it. For people like Doug Levin and Ann Mayo and stuff like that, they're struggling. They just can't do very much, and it's understandable. So they have to look for alternate ways to take care of it, because obviously the trees are going to still fall. People's behavior in the national forest spaces has changed. Mm-hmm. Where do people get off leaving their doggy bags just right at a gate? I mean, come on, it's just like, sometimes I just shake my head. I'm like, what is going on with you people? I mean, do you really think that somebody drives out here like a concierge after you've taken your little trip and picks up after you? No,
yeah, that drives me crazy too.
Sorry, I need to settle down. My blood pressure's going to get up. But it's just, some of the things that I see, they're incorrigible and incomprehensible, to be honest with you. But who's going to do it? Who's going to take care of it? Then the other side of me wants to go, you know what? Nobility is not monopolized. I mean, there's still people that are going to care about it. I've mentioned a lot of them to you, I mean, look at Steve and Randy. I mean, I know their livelihoods are based upon it, but those guys are out there busting their butts right now. And they're not doing that because they're doing it because they want it back open, but it's not merely an economic decision. I think if you ask both of them, hey, what's your experience been like doing this? They would probably both tell you, crap, I wish I'd have done this years ago.
Yeah.
I think they would tell you that. So there is one thing about it. You either love it or you hate it. That much I do know. I see a lot of people that come and they go, well, that's enough of that. But the flip side is there Michael Bebop. He's been amazing. So just binge luscious coming from the Outer Banks. We had David come from North Adams the other day, Massachusetts, for crying out loud.
Wow, that's awesome.
There are people out there. Thank you, Lord, that this path it's not just a hiking trail. This is a place where Mackay said it. He wanted a place where people could decompress and heal. And there are people that truly have, not only have they bought into that, but they require that just as much as they require their next breath of air. It's that bloody important. And I don't know. Maybe I'll be fooled. Maybe I'll be sitting in an old folks' home one day and somebody will come up to me and say, I remember I heard about you doing this and that and the other, and I'm doing it now, and I'll go, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's
one of the things you and I had talked about was your relationship with the National Forest Service and the ATC. You want to hit on any of that?
I can. We do. The ATC is just it's different. I think Bob I'm not gonna hang him out to dry, but Bob said it best. Appalachian Trail Conservancy. Used to be conference, but now Appalachian Trail Conservancy. Okay? What's the T in there? What's the T? It's trail. And sometimes I think that gets forgotten. I think it just happens to be a conservancy sometimes that is logistically in proximity to the Appalachians or Appalachians. Ooh, gosh, it hurts when I say that.
What's your language?
Yeah. I think it is a behemoth now. It is larger than it was when I started.
It continues to grow.
It continues to grow. I've known some really good people that work for the Conservancy. People that I admire, people I trust and value their opinions. I know they've been through the war, and they are important to me. But then there's also the other round and round and round and round part of it that I don't know. Sometimes and then I get surprised today, there's actually money out there that's being donated and now being passed through and funneling to clubs to buy gear, saws, and put crews on the ground. So, okay, all right. I sit corrected. If I was standing, I'd stand corrected. How's that?
Well, and I completely agree with you, but I don't. But before Hurricane Helene came through, I don't think that was the case, was it?
So, I sometimes scratch my head as to what really is going on. Sometimes I know the TAG grants do buy a lot of our materials that we use for backcountry bridges and things like that. Uh-huh. So I can't. I obviously find no fault in that at all, but I also do know that the expenditures on that side have been few and far between. I'll just leave it at that. They have, and yeah. Most of the resource materials that get used on the AT are native to the areas, and they're just pulled out of wherever you are. Mm-hmm. So,
do you get funding from the ATC for saws and equipment, or do you have to raise that money yourself?
We are right now. That resiliency fund money, we just bought 3 saws.
Right. But on a normal basis, before the resiliency fund came about, were you having to raise money for your own, or you get it through your own donations, or do they support you monetarily?
Okay, they support the tag grants do supply some funds. So we've gotten things like bar and chain oil, rope, grip hoists. That money does come down from the ATC, and it comes through it comes through Tennessee tag grant money.
Right.
I think the last time I looked, about $16 every time you renew your tag. About $16 per tag, and I've got one. Goes to the ATC and is supposed to be used in the state in which is a real trick here because we just go back and forth from North Carolina to Tennessee.
Right.
But yeah, That money does help us. There's no question. Have I ever seen a detailed accounting of it? No. Am I involved in that process? I'm not one of the grant writers in our club, so no, I'm not. So I don't want to speak out of turn.
But in order to get that money, you have to. It's not just parceled out to you.
Correct.
You have to put in for a grant to get that money from the ATC.
Usually, what happens, Ramdino, is I'm in the hardware business, so I might take fasteners and I might stop at Lowe's and get some pressure-treated lumber, and we build a bog bridge, and somebody else brings some other materials from somewhere else. We put the bog bridges together. We keep our receipts, and then every December we submit those and get reimbursed from the club for our expenditure. So we may build a bog bridge in March. We keep our receipts. We turn them in, and one of the guys in the club writes a grant to get that money back. That's basically has been my experience as to how it works. Or somebody else that might be in the hardware business donates a saw to their trail club, or chains, or gloves, or hard hats, or tools, or loppers, or whatever it may be. So yeah, I mean, one of the things that's happening right now, and it is, they gave us 3 saws. They're going to pay the lodging and food, and I don't know about food, but they're going to pay the lodging for these crews and pay for the crews. But what about all these people that aren't necessarily financially well off, that are having to buy gallons and gallons of fuel and chain oil and things like that, and chains? They use their own saws. I use my own saw. My lovely wife bought me a chainsaw for our anniversary recently. She didn't know it and she didn't pick it out, but I appreciate the saw. You know what I mean? I said, thank you. I said, thank you.
So that's a huge problem, is the lack of volunteers out there. So as Joe indicated, he used to have 23 folks that would show up, and now there's 6. Now that's pre-Helene. So right now they're getting a lot of volunteers are coming out. When I went out and served with them, there was 23 folks that day. And so we had a good group. We were able to split up into several different teams, but is that going to continue? As he had said in the earlier video, it's mainly a bunch of old folks out there. And so we've got to get a younger generation involved in it. And so those are some things that hopefully after Helene is over and done with, and we've got the trail squared away, that the volunteerism will continue, or else we're going to be in trouble when it comes to what's going to happen. Because once you start having to pay people to come out and maintain the trail, as he indicated, it's not going to be the same trail. It's not going to be the same. So that is very worrisome for me. My experience with them was these are some of the hardest working folks out there, most skilled. I can't imagine any more skill set that they need, and that needs to be passed on to the next generations coming up. And so it can't be if folks are not there. And he's right, spot on, that if it's, the heart of the trail is the volunteer that are out there. And how do we change the bureaucracy that he didn't want to, he was parsing his words there a little bit. I'm not going to put words in his mouth or anything, but I can tell that, if it was just me and him sitting down over a coffee or an adult beverage, that there may be other words that were said. So he has to live within that sphere, and so he can only say so much out there. But that bureaucracy obviously needs to change. You know that from me, and it starts with the leadership that is at some of that bureaucracy. Folks, I've got one more video coming up of this interview with Joe, so looking forward. You can go and check out the rest of it over here, and check out everything that we've talked about before, and that playlist will bring you up to speed on where we are now. Folks, that's all I've got for right now. As always, appreciate you, and we'll see you out there.